Okay, the last two lessons we talked about how Spain has built really an empire in the New World. Once Columbus has sailed over there, Spain has planted its flag. It has built a huge empire in Central America, South America, and the southern part of North America. We also can't forget about Portugal. Portugal has also claimed the eastern portion of present-day South America. All right? But today we're really going to talk about colonizing North America. This area up through here, Spain has gone into the borderlands and right along through here in Florida. Of course, all of this area right here belongs to Spain. But what about this area right here? Well, we're going to talk about that today. A lot of these European powers, England, the Netherlands, France, even some Scandinavian countries like just Sweden, are very envious of Spain. Spain's getting wealthy. They're getting loaded. Oh my God, look at all the money they're getting. We need to go out there. We need to go out there and we need to make some money as well. So one of the first explorers, again, a lot of these guys are Italian. I might mention, Columbus was actually Italian. He wasn't Spanish. But in England, John Cabot, his name was Caboto, who is from Italy, is sailing for England. And he sails across the Atlantic Ocean, and he reports back to England that he has found a newfound land. Newfound land, which he believes, again, like Columbus, is Asia. And it's a land full of fishing. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be great. We found our way to Asia. No, he didn't. The newfound land actually turns out to be what we call present-day Newfoundland. Newfoundland, all right? Which is the easternmost part of Canada. All right, so we are nowhere close to Asia. But remember, all of these European countries are looking for a way to get into that very valuable trade with Asia. All right, so they know that Magellan has made a trip around the world. And if you remember that cost him 4 ships and like 232 dudes out of 250. So they know that Magellan's route to Asia is way too long. It took him nearly, I think it was like three and a half years. All right. They want to trade with Asia, like I mentioned, and they need a quicker way. Magellan's too long. They believe, and I think I mentioned this, a couple lessons ago, that there must be a water passage, a way to sail quickly to Asia. They call it the Northwest Passage, an all-waterway route around North America. Now, if you look at the globe, you will notice that actually there is a water to the north of North America, but it's ice, right? It's the Arctic Ocean. It freezes over, too cold. But they don't know that. They are going to search, and they're going to search, and they're going to search for the Northwest Passage. And again, like I told you a couple lessons ago, for over 300 years they're going to look for this. All right? All right, before we leave the slide, though, I need to talk about a couple other things. All right, now, that was England. They're kind of searching. But what about France? All right, now, France sends another Italian. You notice the Italians, they had been the masters of the sea for quite some time, especially in the Mediterranean. They really seem to be the guys. If you need a sailor, a sea captain, you can go to Italy. Those are the best dudes. So France, again, sends another Italian out. His name is how do you say that? Hang on. It's Verrazano. I think that's how you pronounce it, but it might be just a little off. Now, he's also searching for the Northwest Passage. And Verrazano, he journeys along the North American coast. He sails as far south as the Carolinas, looking for this all-waterway. All right? During the 1530s, and this guy is actually French, is Jacques Cartier, starts sailing for the French, and he travels up the St. Lawrence River. Now, I'm telling you what, guys, up at the St. Lawrence River at the mouth of the Atlantic Ocean, it looks like I have found it. Yay for us. And you sail, and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I have finally found the all-waterway route. But then it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And finally, if you've traveled far enough, guess what you come to? Waterfalls, right? If you can sail the St. Lawrence River all the way through Lake Ontario and you come to the Niagara Falls. So that's definitely not going to work. Okay, so all of these people are looking for the waterway. Now England also sends out another guy, Henry Hudson. Henry Hudson, he sails his ship. It's called the Half Moon, and he enters a river off of New York, and he sails up and is heading to the north, but he thinks he's going to turn west and eventually all the way around North America. And he sails up the river, keeps going further and further north. Unfortunately, the river begins to get narrower, and it is actually the Hudson River. Once again, and that's why it's called the Hudson River, named after Henry Hudson, who at the time was sailing for England. All right? No, I'm sorry. I got that backwards. He was sailing for the Dutch at that time. Now, one thing I need to remind you guys, though, remember when I talked about Cartier? They're kind of claiming this area for France. When Henry Hudson is sailing for the Dutch, as he's sailing up the present-day Hudson River, he's claiming that area for the Dutch. All right? Now, Henry Hudson then, who is English, by the way, he starts sailing for his home country of England, and once again he sets out and he sails up into what is present-day Hudson Bay, named after, again, Henry Hudson. And Hudson Bay is huge, but his crew becomes very upset. It's cold, it's harsh conditions, they don't seem to be getting anywhere, and finally his crew has a mutiny. And they take Henry Hudson, his son, and a few of the crew members that remain loyal to him, and they stick him in a boat, and they sail away. And guys, Henry Hudson is never seen again. His body has never been recovered. All right? So again, though, but it turns out that, Hudson Bay is just a big bay. It is not the Northwest Passage. All right, so those are just some quick background on some of the explorers. But again, remember, they're claiming this area for the country they're sailing for. So you see France, you've seen the Dutch, which is also known as the Netherlands, and you have seen England looking for the Northwest Passage. Okay, not only are these European countries very envious of Spain getting fabulously wealthy, at the same time, the Protestant Reformation breaks out in Europe. Remember, you studied this last year, Martin Luther nails his 95 Thesis on the church at Wittenberg, Wittenberg Castle, which is in Worms, Germany. I'm not going to get into the whole Protestant Reformation, but you start to see this Protestant Reformation. Protestant means to protest against the Roman Catholic Church. They're upset with some indulgences. They're upset with some of the things that the Pope is doing. So they split away. They start to break up into their own churches. And when these countries are now coming over, and by the way, Spain stays Catholic, I might add, they bring their religious differences with them. All right? So some of these nations are going to stay Catholic. Italy, of course. Spain, France, pretty much stays Catholic. But England, the Netherlands, especially a lot of those Norwegian countries, become Protestant. And they're going to bring these religious rivalries with them to the New World. So not only are they fighting for money, they're fighting over religion. What's really interesting to me, though, is that Queen Elizabeth of England had encouraged, English, ships to raid the Spanish galleons, steal their stuff in the name of God. Seems a little unusual to me that that's what you should be doing. But the hatred is so great. Now, and I think it's a lot of jealousy also. But they hate Spain because they are rich, and they hate Spain because they are Catholic. All right. So these religious differences are really going to bring these really strong rivalries into the scene in North America. Okay, so let's go back to Spain and France. Okay, Spain is making a lot of money off gold and silver. They're finding a lot of gold and silver. All right. Now France is very interested in this as well. They want to get gold and silver, so they they send out some explorers, and the most famous, I think, of all the French explorers is Samuel de Champlain. He kind of follows the same route that Cartier had taken earlier, and he follows, the St. Lawrence River, and he stops and he builds a settlement just off the river called Quebec. All right, Quebec. That's going to be the capital of what they're going to call New France. Yay! You're going to find, guys, that our explorers are not very creative when they name things. New England, New York, New France, New Spain, New Orleans. Orleans is a city in France. Okay. Where is it? Yeah, it's French or Spain. Can't remember. But anyways, you're going to find that they're not very creative. All right. So settlements along the St. Lawrence River. Remember, that's the route that Cartier had originally taken. So Champlain comes along, and he sets up a settlement along the St. Lawrence River. Now, here's the deal. There's no gold or silver there. No, not like, they're not going to make money off gold and silver. But that doesn't mean they can't get rich, right? What they do find is an abundance of fur-bearing animals, all right? Fur-bearing animals. Okay, so they know that, if they could trade with the natives for fur-bearing animals, they can make a lot of money. So they send out these people. They're called the coureurs de bois, runners of the woods. That's what that means, runners of the woods. And they are going to live very, very much like the natives. They're going to treat them very well. They're going to live in the same villages. They're going to wear the same types of clothes. They're not chopping down the trees. They're not clearing the forest. They're not farmers. And they are bringing with them trade goods like knives and kettles and pots and firearms. And they're trading with the natives for these beaver skins, which they are then able to take back to Europe, and where they're going to make a huge profit. All right? Missionaries also follow the French, and they're traveling to convert the Indians to Christianity, namely Catholicism. But besides just trying to convert the natives to Christianity, they're also exploring, and they draw maps, which becomes very valuable to the French later on. Now, as the French have explored the St. Lawrence River, they kind of move through the Great Lakes region, and they find another huge river. This one runs from the north to the south. We know it as the Mississippi River. And the French begin to explore that. The first two guys, Jacques Marquette, and Louis Joliet, they start to travel down the Mississippi, and they go down like 700 miles or so before they start turning back. But about 9 or 10 years later, De La Salle, he goes all the way down to the mouth of the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico, and La Salle names this whole area Louisiana after King Louis XIV, the Sun King. All right? So now the French have claimed all the land along the St. Lawrence River and all along the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River. But how are they going to protect this? Right? So they start to build strings of forts all along the Missouri River and the St. Lawrence River. A couple of the forts I should mention is one of the forts, Fort Detroit. Yeah, that's right, man. Detroit, Michigan, was built by a guy, and get the name of this guy. His name is Antoine Cadillac. So even our cars, can historically, the naming of our cars, the naming of our cities, all the way back to some of these explorers. Okay, the next one that we should talk about is New Orleans. Again, named after the city in France, Orleans, New Orleans. Its mouth at the the Mississippi River as it goes into the Gulf of Mexico, and New Orleans becomes a very, very valuable trading post for the French. All right. Now the French tried to bring in Africans to work as slaves in nearby plantations, but we have some of these slaves kind of joined together with some of the native Indians right there, and they revolt against the French. Now the French are able to put down this revolt. But, things aren't going that well. Here's the one thing. They can't get a lot of French settlers to come to this area. France is never going to have a large population in New France. You take away New Orleans, you take away Quebec, those two major population centers, you're not going to have a whole lot of people. There's not a whole lot of people who want to go live like the Indians do. All right, that's a tough life. So France is always going to have a small population in New France. Now, New France is governed kind of like it was in New Spain. The King of France, he sets the rules. And again, very small population. They even try to force people to go there, but they're just not going to do it. Okay? So that's going to be kind of tough to really grow a new France. Now, like France, the Netherlands. Again, when I say Netherlands, we are also saying the Dutch. Netherlands, Dutch, same thing. All right, so don't get confused on that. All right, so the Dutch, they hope to profit just like the French are doing, and they send out explorers as well. Remember, Henry Hudson has originally sailed for the Dutch. In his first journey over to North America, we sailed up what the present-day Hudson River. They claimed that for the Dutch. Now, Peter Minuit, in 1626, I think it is, 1626, yes. He takes a group of settlers to the mouth of the Hudson River because, remember, Hudson has claimed that for the Dutch. And he sees this cool island. He goes, hey, let's buy it. So Peter Minuit is able to buy the island of Manhattan, which is present-day New York City, from the Native Americans. I think it turned out to be like $24 worth of trade goods. One of the greatest land deals ever. All right? Now, they don't call this New York. Okay? We'll get to that later. They call it New Amsterdam. Okay? The whole area that the Dutch have claimed, they call New Netherlands, because it's the New Netherlands. And this little outpost on Manhattan, they call New Amsterdam, after the big city in the Netherlands. All right? This is going to be a huge, important place, obviously, as you guys know, New York City, which it eventually becomes. Okay, it starts off with a tiny group, there's 30 houses, but it grows into a very important port. The Dutch begin to welcome people from all over. There's languages, there's different religions, and that's going to be kind of the basis that we're going to get into later, a little bit how more tolerant this area seems to be. All right? They're much more welcoming to new ideas, to different religions than other people. Okay? The Dutch also built trading posts along the Hudson River, and I don't know. They become good. By the way, I should mention that the Dutch and the French are also kind of fighting over the same thing. They want all the trade from the Indians, and the Dutch want the trade from the Indians, and the French want the trade from the Indians. So you're going to see some rivalries. Okay, so what happens is they start to kind of side with tribes. Now the Dutch kind of side with the Iroquois nation. All right, where the French side with the Hurons. Whoops, whoa, what happened there? The Hurons. All right, and of course, they get these two tribes to fight. Who's going to, and it's going to be a battle that's going to last for quite some time. But there are some things that I want to mention about some Dutch customs. All right, our book mentions that the Dutch brought many of their customs with them. They like to ice skate on frozen ponds like they did back home, so ice skating became a big deal. Dutch children put on their shoes on St. Nicholas Day. So St. Nicholas became St. Nick. Kids used to eat on their cookies, and they used to ride on sleighs. Those are all Dutch words. Even the master of a Dutch ship was called a boss. So you start to see some of these Dutch traditions that still continue on today. All right? Okay, so here's a slide that's kind of important as far as, the effects of the European exploration in America. And here's some of the things. One thing I didn't really get into, I did talk about how the Europeans want more goods from Asia. We know that. But the problem is that the Muslim Empire is beginning to grow and expand, and they've kind of cut off the traditional Silk Road and some of those trade routes that the Europeans had used. So the Muslims have gained control of trade between Europe and Asia. The rulers of Europe want to seek ways to increase their wealth. We kind of talked about that with Spain. So the European nations began to look for sea routes, a way to get to there quicker. Now, the Portuguese had figured out a way to sail all the way around Africa to get there, but that takes a long time. Remember, Columbus starts to search the Americas because he believes that by sailing west, he can hit Asia. All right? All of this leads to the exploration of America. What's the effects? Well, Spain builds an empire in the Americas. The English, the French, the Dutch set up colonies in North America. Unfortunately, millions of these Native Americans are going to die from European diseases. The slave trade begins, bringing those poor enslaved Africans into the Americas. But a good thing, food from Americas are introduced to Europe and vice versa. So today, what does that all mean to us today, 2014? Well, the U.S. is a multicultural society. American foods such as corn and potatoes are important. Remember, corn and potatoes were not found in Europe, Asia, or Africa up until, the Columbian Exchange. So today, corn, potatoes is a very important food to people all around the world. All right? So there you go. We started to see how Spain has built their empire, and now these other European countries are coming in to kind of take advantage of, the situation. All right, got a little quiz here, I guess. Which European country did not establish a colony in North America? Germany, France, Netherlands, or Sweden? I should have mentioned that Sweden actually did have a colony for a short period of time. It is Germany. Germany does not colonize. Okay, possibly because they don't have a very big naval presence. They don't have a lot of access to the sea, and that's probably why. European nations in North America competed for what? The right to convert the Indians, control of land and fur, colonists from many nations, gold and silver ore. Okay, they competed for gold and silver ore, control of the land and fur. Here's the deal, guys. Here's what you should know. These European nations are really fighting over land, wealth, and power. Okay? Land, wealth, and power. When I mean wealth, that could be fishing. It could be timber. It could be fur trade. It could be gold. It could be silver. They really could care less where it comes from as long as they're getting wealthy. So they're competing for land, wealth, and power. Remember that. All right. There you go. The next time we're going to talk a little bit more about the English.